Okay, so there was a seminar in Canada some time back where law enforcement officers were telling college-age girls how they could mitigate their chances of rape. This is basically out there to help them. It's kind of like saying, okay, to mitigate your chances of somebody breaking into your car and stealing your valuables out, one of the things you want to do is you want to lock your car. You want to secure all your valuables, take them inside with you, and you want to make sure that they can't look inside and see anything and say, "Ooh, well, I can get a lot of money for that." It's basically mitigating the chances of your car getting broken into and mitigating your losses if your car gets broken into. All right? It's that sort of thing. It's trying to help somebody out, helping them to prevent themselves from becoming a victim or to make the losses worse should they become a victim of somebody breaking into their car and stealing their stuff. Just the same as the seminar was to mitigate the chances of college-age girls becoming victims of rape. Well, there are some feminists that did not take to those answers too well. Hence, we have Slutwalk. Now, what I'm about to be responding to, obviously, I don't know the entirety behind the video. I haven't even watched the whole video through, but there are a few parts I wanted to cover.
I'm willing to go down to your level.
Look at me. I got your message. Okay? I got it in here. I got it in here. I feel like I'm gonna puke because I'm just having fucking flashbacks about everybody saying it was my fault that I got drugged and I got raped. Okay, it was not my fault that someone drugged me.
Okay, so when you ask for attention, always bear in mind that the attention you ask for isn't exactly going to be the attention you want. Yes, when you do things like this, you're going to get attention. And it's not always going to be the attention you want. It's just like when you go out and look for sex. It's not always going to be the sex you want. That's the first part I'd like to say on that one. Now, is this guy just doing this to be an asshole? Is he doing it because there's because this is something that gets his jollies off? Is he doing this because he has a counterpoint to make, which is also very possible? Or is he doing this just because he's tired of hearing it just like everyone else? Well, I don't know. I haven't talked to the guy. I don't know the guy. I don't know his motives. But the fact of the matter is that when you do things like Slutwalk, you're going to draw attention out there that you didn't want. That's just the fact of the matter. I don't know what to tell you other than if you don't want the negative attention, don't do it. It's just like open carriers. While I understand what they're trying to accomplish with this, they're trying to show everyone, hey, we have AR-15s, normal, everyday people own firearms like this, bring them out, and let everyone understand that this is normal. They also get negative attention. They get swatted by gun control advocates often. They get talked to by the police quite frequently. And they still do it. Again, attention you want isn't always going to be the attention you get when you're going out there and asking for it. That's just life. That's reality. Now, when you come to the second point I wanted to cover in this portion right here, I don't think anyone's blaming you for being drugged and raped. In fact, very few people, like a minuscule portion of the population blames you for this. Now, that, I mean, if there was a significant portion of the population that actually were blaming you for this, I don't think our rape laws would be so stringent. I don't think the penalties for rape would be so stringent. So nobody's blaming you for being drugged and raped, assuming that's what happened. You see, with rape, there are just as many convictions of rape as there are, of cases, which is provable false allegations of rape. And there's a huge gray area to where we just don't know for sure whether or not you were raped or lying about it. That's just the cold hard truth. I mean, there's a huge gray area in there to where we just can't say for sure. And it's not fair to put somebody in prison over, yeah, we're pretty sure you did it, or, yeah, we don't know if you did it or not, but we're just going to do it anyway, just to be on the safe side. You see, that would be unjust. Now, what many people are talking about against this slutwalk position is that there are things you can do to mitigate this. You see, nobody is responsible for your safety quite like you. You have the greatest responsibility for your own personal safety. It's not victim blaming. It's simply asking you to take some personal responsibility. Simply trying to help you out because everyone else can't go through their life holding your hand like you're a child. You've got to take some responsibility for your own life. Part of this meaning, if you go out to the clubs, watch your drink. Regulate yourself on how much you've had to drink. Don't go get plastered. In fact, they found that there are several of those cases where a woman claimed to be drugged, and it turned out she wasn't drugged, she just had way too much to drink. So that's another thing that's worth talking about. The third thing, when it gets to your dress. Now, I hate to break this to you, but how you dress does bring a certain attention to you. I.e., if you dress like a thug, you shouldn't be surprised when you get negative attention from the police and other upstanding citizens. You shouldn't be surprised, if you're dressing like Johnny B. Gangsta there, and then you walk into a convenience store and the clerk and everyone else are looking at you like you're going to rob the place. It sucks because that might not be your intentions, but, they've known that statistically speaking, that the people that rob those places are generally dressed like that. Just the same as when you dress like a slut, well, there are going to be people that take it as you want sex. There are going to be people that take it as you want attention. There are going to be people that take it, hey, this person's dangling out there just so they can get me to buy them drinks. I mean, think of it this way. Would you walk into a lion's den holding a huge steak there, just putting it out in front of the lion, then what do you think's going to happen to you if you do that? You think the lion's just going to sit there and be nice and friendly about it? No. Lion's probably going to maul your ass, take the steak, and take a few chunks out of you too. That's just common sense. That's reality here. So nobody's blaming you for your rape, but there are some things we're pretty sure that a lot of people are pretty sure you could have done differently. You see, when police officers give these seminars how you can avoid being a victim of rape, they're not blaming you. You see, these guys are subject matter experts. It's their job to deal with criminals. It's their job to make arrests. It's their job to investigate crime scenes. It's their job to figure out what exactly happened. And it's their job to figure out, okay, what happened here? What could have been done differently? How can we mitigate this in the future? I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, if there's any law enforcement officer here that says something different, I mean, please let me know. Because I'm not a law enforcement officer. I have limited experience with law enforcement officers. Namely, I have a few law enforcement officers that are friends of mine, and I've taken CHL courses from certified law enforcement officers. So, again, you know, if I've misstated something about law enforcement officers, please, law enforcement, correct me. But moving on.
Hey, please just walk away. Please.
Be done.
Please.
Be done.
Please just be done. We heard you. We heard you. You got your message across.
This is
Just
the
like we
them
were
talking to
trying
each other
to.
part. Fucking leave.
Please, just go. Please, just go.
Just because your dad didn't fucking
Stop,
teach you
stop,
to be
please.
nice to women
Please, just.
and to treat them right.
I
Fucking
don't-
leave.
Okay. And so she's telling him to go away. Yeah, she's hurt by the message. You know, it's been my experience with people that don't want to hear a message. These are the very same people that need it the most. You know, and when we get down to it, freedom of speech means freedom of all speech, even speech you don't like. It's not freedom of speech up to the point where it offends you, special snowflake. It's freedom of speech for everybody. Because you know what? While his speech may offend you, may hurt you deeply, just think how annoyed the rest of us are with your speech. Just think of how annoyed the rest of us are when we're in a job where we have to take these stupid sexual harassment briefs, or we have to be told, or we're being told that we don't know what rape is and that we don't know not to rape yet. You know? So, this guy has as much freedom of speech as you do. You know? And while you're telling him to get the hell out of there, that you don't want to hear him, well, guess what? None of us want to hear your dumb ass either. And another note before I continue on with a little bit more of a response. That dude that's right beside her there, yeah, dude, you're not helping the situation either. It appears that your dad didn't teach you how to handle women either. It appears your dad didn't teach you a lesson that there are some women that will cry, use their emotions, and everything like that to try to get you to do stuff for them. And this approval-seeking behavior of yours isn't helping out at all.
I don't want to hurt anymore. I'm trying to get better.
They're
You're
doing-
saying trying to get over it. You were saying I hurt.
Well, if you're trying to get better, this poor me attitude is not going to help you out at all. In fact, it's going to make the situation worse. You see, first off, yeah, assuming that it is true that you were raped, that you were drugged and raped, what's going to help you get better, you understand that it happened, you know, you got to deal with that, but also, okay, you got to think, what did I do to lead up to this? How could I have done something different to mitigate the chances of this happening? You know, take that experience and opposed to using that, as opposed to focusing on that, oh, poor me, something bad happened to me, you know. Instead, take it and say, okay, this happened. What can I do to prevent this in the future? What can I do to mitigate this from happening in the future. You know, take it as a lesson learned. And again, do the things that are going to help you prevent this from happening to you in the future.
I heard you saying, why don't you just get over it? I'm trying, and the people
That's why
like
you need to
never
become a
tell me
Christian.
that it's not
We are
bad.
Christians, stupid ass. Yeah.
It doesn't
With that kind of
matter.
hating you?
Stop, Rain,
Liz.
no,
No.
please just stop, Rain. I understand that you're trying to help, but please just, this is peaceful, we don't need to be yelling. I just am asking you for the money.
Again, if you're trying to get over it, doing this whole slut walk thing ain't going to help you. You know, it just simply ain't. You got to get out of that victim mindset. Now, you notice that dude, wow, I mean, he's able to be led around there, you know. Sorry, dude, you know, when she's able to lead you around like that, the very same person who's being affected so much by a sign being held up, you know, you're not going to convince the guy either. You know, especially if she's leading you around like that. Wow, she's got him trained well.
The bottom of my arm. If you are a Christian, please stop yelling at us. Please leave us alone. Please.
Okay, well, maybe everyone else is fed up with your behavior on this too. Sorry that you were raped, if that was the case. What'd you do after the rape to help actually the police find and make an arrest of this guy? Did you sit on it for a bit? Did you not report it? Did you not go to the hospital and get the evidence immediately? You know, these are all things that can help law enforcement out when it comes to solving rape. Doing something real to actually put a rapist behind bars. To actually helping them out with the information they need for the investigation. And also giving them information on your actions prior to the rape so they can say, okay, well, here's what you did wrong. Here's how you can mitigate the situation in the future. Here's how we can help other people not make those same mistakes and help them mitigate their chances of being a victim. You know, and if you didn't do any of that, then you blew your chance. Then you blew your chance to actually do something meaningful and effective. You know, and shouting at this guy and doing these slut walks isn't helping the situation out at all. What you're basically doing is acting like overgrown children.
Yes, it hurts so bad to hear people saying things like that it's not Christian. It's not Christian for you to go and yell at people like that. It's not. I know. I grew up in a very, very Christian home. I know that that's not what it's supposed to be like. Okay? Please, we heard you. Just go.
Okay, here's why I start to disbelieve that she was actually raped. Because, honestly, if you're raped, somebody shouting out some different stuff is going to have a minimal effect on you. That rape, I would figure, would be the thing that's causing you the pain, and somebody else there speaking would be the last thing. Well, maybe not the last thing, but one of the last things that would cause you any pain. You know? That's just my personal opinion on it.
Go. Please just go. You have no idea what it's supposed to do, and we do this every year so we can connect with each other and not feel so alone. Can you please leave us alone? I understand your view on...
No, this is not. you are not just doing this to connect with other rape victims. You're not just doing this to show that you're not alone. You're doing this for attention. Hence, all the provocative wear out in public with the signs and everything like that. You're seeking attention. That's obvious. You know, sorry, you might fool some of the people sometimes, like that little butt sniffer you got there with you, him. But you're not going to fool everybody all the time. And something like this is blatantly obvious. And yes, when you seek attention, again, the attention you get isn't always going to be the attention you want. That's just plain and simple. You know?
Thinking that sometimes it's the girl's fault or whatever, but regardless of what someone is wearing, regardless of if they're Christian or atheist or Jewish or anything else, regardless, it takes something evil in a man's heart or in a woman's heart or in anyone's heart to do that to someone when they...
Okay, again, nobody's saying that you're at fault. Nobody is saying that that rapist isn't evil. Nobody is saying that rape isn't an evil act. In fact, it's quite the opposite. If you look at the way society punishes convicted rapists, if you look at the way, hell, even being accused of rape, how people will look at you in society from there on out, it's obvious that Western society considers rape an evil act. In fact, I mean, get accused of rape and get accused of murder, and the odds are you're going to be treated better as an accused murderer than you are as an accused rapist. Convicted murderers, those convicted of manslaughter, when they get out of prison, they don't have to register as convicted murderers or convicted killers. You get out of prison after your rape sentence is done, you have to register as a sex offender. This should give you an idea of just how serious society takes rape as a crime. Now, what the police officers, again, said in that seminar is a way to mitigate your chances of being raped is if you don't dress so provocatively. You know, it's no different than any of the other things that if you ask the police on what you can do to mitigate your chances of being a victim of a crime, they will say. This is not just for rape, but this is for many crimes. You know, you want to prevent burglaries, lock your doors. Don't leave your valuables out on display out in the window. You know, that sort of thing. You know, pick a good neighborhood to live in as opposed to a crime-ridden neighborhood to live in. Don't let strangers into your home to case the place, you know. Because, again, some burglars like to try to case the place before they break in. And if they know you have some stuff that they can sell and get some money for, your home just became a target. You know, hell, it's like in the classes I took to get my concealed carry license. Now, I haven't taken a concealed carry class since they've cut the time required in concealed carry class down in Texas. However, I've taken the 10-hour classes a few times. One of the things that they tell you, one of the things that they've taught you in those classes is peaceful conflict resolution, if you can. You know, because, again, you don't want to have to draw your firearm to protect yourself, because that's going to be a bad day for you, regardless. You see, and if you have to actually shoot the person, it's going to be worse. Because now, once you've had to draw your firearm to protect yourself, you've got to call the police. You have to actually be able to tell them, you know, when they get there, hey, you know, I had to do this, you know, I had to draw my firearm to protect myself. And you actually have to give them justification for doing that. You know, even in a, quote, stand your ground law state. You know, it has to be to a reasonable person's standard, you know, that the situation warranted you pulling your firearm to protect yourself from death, serious bodily harm, or major property damage. That's just the way it is. And, you know, even with property, even though technically under the law in Texas you're allowed to shoot to protect your property, a lot of the times you still get convicted in court of manslaughter for doing that. And even if you don't get convicted in court for having to draw or fire that firearm, guess what? It's still a costly legal process to do. I mean, if you have to ever draw your firearm or shoot in self-defense, it's a costly legal process. And this is why they teach, this is one of the reasons why they teach conflict resolution. And not a single person in any of the CHL classes I've been in have had a complaint with nonviolent conflict resolution, a conflict de-escalation. We don't call that victim blaming. We call that taking the steps we need to prevent something bad from happening to us, or to prevent us from having to draw our gun to protect ourselves from something bad happening to us. You see, contrary to what the gun control advocates will have you believe, we're not carrying those firearms to go out and look for a fight. We're carrying those firearms as a last resort to protect ourselves from death or severe bodily harm. Now, this isn't promoting crime culture. This isn't promoting rape culture. This isn't promoting theft culture. And this sure as hell isn't victim blaming. This is helping you to minimize the chances of being in a bad situation. It's helping you out. It's not victim blaming.
Say no and when they beg for them
No,
to
I
stop.
agree with that.
So please, it's
then
not
why are you out
our
here
fault.
doing
It's
what
not
you're
our
doing?
fault.
Because you
What's
can't-
your reasoning?
Because well,
What's your
for
reasoning,
one
sir?
thing, I believe that there's a lot of women who.
Do you know what I was wearing? Basketball shorts and an oversized t-shirt. It had nothing to
I'm
do
not.
with what I
I'm
was
not
wearing.
addressing every situation. I'm just. There are
Tell
women
me-
out
give
there.
me a situation.
There are women out there who sleep with a man. It's fully consensual. They're both sober.
How do you know?
And then
Have
they,
you been a victim of this?
No,
Do you know
I
someone
just
who has
read an
had that
article
happen?
this morning
Oh, you
where
did?
this
You read
woman
an
did
article
that.
this morning?
They had
Oh.
consensual
Yeah,
sex.
I know several people
3
who have
times.
claimed that. I know several people who have claimed
Maybe
that.
See,
there are-
you're
maybe
narrow-minded
there are
to say that
situations
there
like
isn't
that,
stuff
though.
like that.
There's a lot of
There
sexual
is.
pressure.
There is.
Okay, so here's the point where I start to take the guy's side even more, you know. Here's the point where I actually have an opinion on the guy with the microphone and the sign. And he's starting to seem like a bit more of a reasonable person. But the Slutwalk people don't want to acknowledge it. They don't want to let him speak. They don't want to hear his opinion, which, from what I gathered there, seems like he's trying to bring up some very valid points. Such as, well, what happens when the both of the couples are sober? It's 100% consensual, and that, one party changes their mind the next day. And he was talking about reading an article, and the little butt sniffer again chimes in with, well, there are a lot of pressures. Well, I'm sorry, dude. We're adults. You're going to have peer pressure in life no matter what. It doesn't make the person administering the peer pressure a little bit a rapist. Women are considered legal adults in the West, as far as I understand. I mean, they can go vote, they can get a driver's license, they can own a firearm, they can buy land, they can get a job, they're responsible for paying taxes, they have the option to choose whether or not they get married, they have a myriad of choices as a legal adult. that they're allowed to take in any aspect of their life. They're considered an adult in all of these areas. So, with that being said, somebody coming to me and saying, or somebody saying, period, that, well, peer pressure, they just did it because of peer pressure. They were bowing into peer pressure, and that person's still a rapist because he used peer pressure. No, that doesn't fly with me. I expect women to act like adults, when they become of legal age, just the same as I expect a man to act as an adult when he becomes of legal age. So this whole peer pressure thing, that's a joke to me. Sorry, you haven't changed my mind at all. In fact, when you said peer pressure, at that point, you've just lost a lot of credibility with me.
Situations like that, though, I see where you're coming. I do see
Sexual
where you're coming
pressure.
from. I do see where you're coming from. I do. I know that there are situations like that, but that is not all of them. And you're trying to lump us all in with the situations like that. Some of these people were raped when they were 5 years old by their uncles or their neighbors or their fathers.
Yeah, and I'm not addressing that.
Right. Okay. Well, then you're like maybe one out of this entire crowd is your situation, but it should not matter to you. Does it affect your life personally?
Yeah.
Actually, many of these sexual assault and harassment experts, many of these rape culture feminists, and many of these slutwalk people are the ones that are doing the lumping in themselves quite well. You see, when I can read the U.S. Army's sexual assault response and prevention policy, their current one, where, after one alcoholic beverage of any sort, consent can no longer be given, which pretty much makes everything people do at weddings, and on their honeymoon now rape. Because, how many weddings do you go to where there isn't alcohol being served up, or, even going to the nightclub, and coming home with somebody now is rape automatically, because both parties, had something to drink, or when we get into the whole laws being proposed and even enacted, such as what they did in California with the yes means yes law, pretty much you have to get affirmative consent throughout the process. It's not just, you've got consent and then understood consent throughout the rest of the process to a reasonable person's standards, or when you have rape culture feminists demanding that there be laws against, quote, stare rape, which basically means, you look at a woman in a way that she considers rape, and all of a sudden it's rape now. We see that right there is doing more to lump actual rape victims in with all these fake rape victims in. And it also would get a reasonable person such as myself, or such as the guy you're yelling at right now, to believe, okay, how many of these victims are actual rape victims versus how many of these victims are actually just conflating something, or they're actually coming back after the fact and saying, well, no, I really didn't give consent. Do you see where I'm going with this?
No! How? Tell me
Because
how?
I'm
On
a
a daily
Christian.
basis.
I'm a Christian, and you guys are spreading around demonic spirits, and I want to...
By getting...
Okay, I don't think this guy's going to get a chance to actually answer your question, with any reasonable answer, because you guys keep cutting him off. You see, when you do that, the only people who you seem credible to now are flipping morons who are just the type of people who would join in on an angry mob, to say the least. But aside from that, okay, when the dude sat there and said, well, I'm a Christian and this, and that, and the other, okay, well, that's kind of where he lost me. But, if you'd actually let the dude speak, maybe you'd give him a chance to burn his own credibility. You see, you don't burn your credibility when you're being silenced with a rational person. You burn your credibility from stupid stuff you say. I know this probably doesn't make sense to some of you rape culture feminists or some of you other progressive types, but to a reasonable person, somebody being silenced doesn't burn their credibility. It's the things that they say that are complete and utter nonsense that burn their credibility.
By getting drunk?
No, by
getting
walking around the
beaten?
street
Wait,
half naked and chanting your jokes.
You sound
Please,
like a good
just,
person.
we've had our comment. I know your side.
Okay, so here's where I can kind of understand what he's saying. I don't agree with the entirety of his premises there. Like, I don't believe that somebody should be forced to dress in a way that they don't want to. But on the same note, what I do have an issue with is when somebody goes out and chooses to dress a certain way and they get the undesirable attention that comes with dressing that certain way, and then they want to complain about that. You see, immediately, my first reaction to seeing a woman provocatively dressed up going into a club is going to be one of a few things. One, she's seeking attention. That's obvious, guys. Two, is she seeking sex? That's a good indicator of it. Three, okay, even if she's not seeking sex, she might be using that to go out there and get everyone else to buy her drinks via her dress, and the way she's trying to do this is she's trying to get guys to start thinking sexually as opposed to non-sexually. And I do have a problem with women who go out and do that just to use men for their money so they don't have to buy their own drinks. What you've done right there is a con job, So, on that note, yeah, what you're doing is immoral. What you're doing is no different than the old schoolyard trick of, well, if you give me, your lunch money, I'll be your friend tomorrow. That sort of thing. And I do see an issue with that. So you're not necessarily helping your case out here. In fact, you're making it worse. No matter how you go with this, you're making your case worse. Now, I don't necessarily think that somebody should be told how to dress. You want to dress a certain way, that's your own business. However, when you do dress that certain way and you get the negative attention that comes with that dress, such as you dress like a thug, and police start looking at you as a thug, when you dress like a slut and everyone else starts looking at you like a slut, you shouldn't be surprised. You shouldn't. It's just like a suburban kid trying to be gangster and everyone now looks at him like he's a loser. That sort of thing. And if you're asking me to be opposed to the consequences of you dressing a certain way, well, you just don't have my sympathy.
You
You know, Jesus walked around half naked most of the time, and he was a compassionate human
Where does the
being.
Bible say that?
We want to just
Be compassionate and loving
we
and
want to just
kind.
love each other and get strength for each other, right?
Yeah, it's funny how people cherry pick things. Well, question to this one. Who made the comment about Jesus walking around half naked? Now, did Jesus walk around half naked half the time to get sexual attention? Please point it out to me where he did. The fact of the matter is that everything I've read in the Bible didn't indicate that. But to be fair, there are several religious fundamentalists that will cherry pick the Bible too. You know, so I don't necessarily agree on that one either, which is why I don't agree with having a state religion. You know, there's too much of an opportunity to cherry pick it. I mean, we already see how much people will cherry pick the Constitution. They will put things in there that aren't supposed to be there, you know, and they'll take out things that it's just inconvenient to them. And, you know, in fact, I think most of those people haven't even read the Constitution. So, to do something like that with the Bible and try to make your laws based off what the Bible says is completely ludicrous, in my opinion. You know, I believe people should be allowed to have their own faith and their own religion. You know, choose to be a Christian, good on you. You choose to be a Jewish person, good on you. You choose to be a Mormon, that's your freedom in this country. You choose not to believe, that's your freedom in this country. But sit there and write laws based on what's in the Bible, it just doesn't work out so well. I mean, we're already having enough trouble following the Constitution, you know, with people not understanding what's in the Constitution. And that's just 20 pages. You know, look how long the Bible is. But alas, let's continue on.
Now, okay, so we got your point. You got the whole walk. Please just let us have our 15 minutes where we can be together without someone making us feel more shitty about it. Please. Can you just do that? Somewhere in your heart, you've got to be a Christian if you keep saying you are. And Christians should not make people hurt like you're making me hurt by saying those things.
Again, you have freedom of speech. You don't have freedom from other people's speech that might be hurtful to you. In fact, sometimes the very things that don't feel all peachy and friendly are the dose of reality that you sometimes need. Now, while you're out there in a public space seeking attention, which is what you're doing with the Slutwalk, is you're out there going to seek attention. You're out there pretty much defying some advice when you get down to it, and this is where Slutwalk started off with. You're defying advice of what law enforcement gave in a seminar to try to help you mitigate the chances of you being a victim of rape, and you're out there spitting on that publicly, and you're doing it for attention. So you guys just need to understand that when you do stuff like that, there's going to be some negative attention you get. It doesn't matter what your cause is or what you're doing. When you're going out there to get attention, sometimes the attention you get is not going to be positive.
And you're making all of these girls hurt by saying those things.
Yeah. Well, you see, sometimes to grow, to become a stronger, more intelligent, and better suited human being, sometimes you have to adapt. Sometimes you have to hear things that you don't always want to hear. You got to be able to accept criticism. And that's the long and short of it. And if you really can't take that criticism, you really can't take your views being criticized, and you can't take your own actions being criticized, don't go broadcasting them, which is what you're doing with Slutwalk.
Please, just please. Please.
How about this?
No, no.
Just walk away.
I just
How
won't
about
preach.
what?
Just walk away.
If
I'll
you,
just be on the sidelines.
No,
if you-
just walk away.
if you would like to come and say quietly and peacefully, we're trying to have a peaceful protest.
Put your
we're
sign
trying
down.
We're trying.
And it finally comes out. You're trying to have a protest. That's exactly what you're doing. You're having a protest. You're putting your opinions out there. You want the attention. You know? Hey, guess what? Oftentimes when you have protests, you're going to have counter-protesters. It's a reality of the situation. When you put your opinion out there, there are going to be people with opposing opinions. Sorry, Charlie, you know, you don't like it, try to be a gun rights advocate. You know, look at some of the abuse we put up with. You know, hell, I'll put you a link to some of the abuse we have to put up with. You know, when was the last time that one of you rape culture feminists got told that you should have to be shot to exercise what you would consider a basic right?
To spread awareness, okay? If you can sit and not provoke
Well,
us.
how about that? I'm trying to
and
spread
not-
awareness too.
Okay, and you spread it. We all heard you. We all.
Yeah, you're spreading awareness. You're putting yourself out on a public platform. You're seeking attention. Guess what? When you do that, other people with opposing views are going to come out. And they're not always going to be the views you want to hear. The world is not your echo chamber. You know, the world is not your little hug box, so to speak. That's obvious. Now, if you're hurting that bad, you know, that you can't stand to hear an opposing opinion, my suggestion is you get off the public platform for a bit, you take some time to heal up, and then come back out there when you can handle some criticism. You know, that sort of thing. Maybe rethink your opinion a little bit too. If it's so easy to take apart, you know, then maybe you just don't have a good opinion. Now, I've shown you a microcosm of the abuse gun rights advocates have to put up with. Right there on that Salon article. Did you hear us crying? No. We keep going, and we go harder and harder. You know, hell, you want to know some other examples? You know, well, hell, open carriers get swatted all the damn time. You know, you have gun control organizations that advocate for that swatting. You know, do you hear us whining and crying and saying, oh no, you guys just need to be sensitive of us? No, we already know they're not going to be sensitive of us. And, you know, and we wouldn't ask that anyway. We don't need the sensitivity. We tend to be very grounded in reality. And we can handle any sort of abuse the opposition wants to throw at us. This is why we're successful. One of the many reasons why we're successful in defending our legal ability, for the most part, to own firearms in this country. You know. And if you're really hurting that bad, then you probably need to step off the public platform, take some time to heal up, probably, you know, rethink your opinion. You know, is your opinion an emotional-based one or is it a rationally-based one? And then when you're held up and ready to go, that's when you get back on the public platform. Just saying. Alright. This is about all I'm going to do on this video right here. Y'all take it easy now.